I love college students. I love you. I love their energy. I love their potential. I love their questions. I love their growth. This year, I'm actually going to be celebrating my 25th anniversary working with college students. Thanks. Yeah. And throughout these years, my love has only deepened and expanded. It's just so great. I have the privilege, and I really actually call it a sacred privilege, of working with what I call the inner student. And I want to thank one of my students, Rebecca, who actually coined that term. And it was after just a very typical advising session. It was our first advising session, and she came in. And it was just one of these like magical, positive experiences. And as we were wrapping up, she was ready to go. And then she paused, very dramatically, looked me in the eye, and said, "Thank you for getting to know the inner student." And I loved that. I actually loved it so much I posted it on Facebook right away because I was just like, wow. And I loved it because the inner student to me captures the dynamic forces of college life and everything that's happening in the university with that very deeply personal, private space of identity and dreams and motivation and commitments. The sad thing, though, I think, is that in higher education, we often neglect the inner student. And it worries me sometimes that our policies and our procedures are not about the inner student. Actually, I think that we have a broken system. So I want to tell you that of the college students who start every year, who begin their college studies every year, only 50% of them actually earn their degrees. Did you know that? Half. And for our Hispanic students, that number drops to 42%. And our African American students, it drops to 37%. To me, I feel that we are in the midst of an epidemic. And I really think it's an epidemic of lost potential. I really do. Because I think I'm such a believer that education transforms and it empowers people and it stabilizes. And there are naysayers out there who say, oh, well, you know, if people can't get through school, they shouldn't be in school. I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. Because the numbers and the statistics are just too telling. The difference between someone who graduates from college and someone who has a high school diploma is $1 million over their lifetime. $1 million. A college degree also allows people to be more satisfied in their work. So it's shown that people with college degrees are more satisfied in their work, they're healthier, and they're actually more involved parents. And it translates to a vibrancy in a community because people who graduate from college are actually more engaged and more involved. They volunteer more, they vote. They work at a higher rate, they're unemployed at a lower rate, so they contribute to the tax base. And it's one system in our country that actually pays forward to the next generation. Because you hear of all these systems that are going to bankrupt the next generation, not education. For the child of someone who graduated from college, the chances of that child graduating from college, just by the fact that their parents went to college, increases by 40%. 40%. So it's something that really, absolutely, is something that we need to invest in. And I look around and I see this world, you know, where we have this looming divide between the haves and the have-nots. And I see education as this democratizing force. I really do. It actually can bridge that divide. So I think we need to ask ourselves the questions. Why aren't more students graduating? It's an important question to ask. And I have had the luxury, I think, of being able to go from practice to research, back to practice. I was able to earn a doctoral degree actually in this topic and write a paper, a 100-page paper on this topic, which to me, yeah, it was difficult and it was challenging, but it was something that, as someone said to me once, education can never be taken away, and what you get from that experience is just something really powerful. It's transformative. So the answer, actually, I think, is in a recent study that I came across put out by the ACT, the American College Testing, and what they did was they talked to over 258 administrators, and they asked them to rank the reasons why students aren't graduating from college. So they gave them a whole list, and I looked at the study, and they were able to just check off the reasons why their students aren't graduating. So I want to share some of the reasons. Well, there's a lack of preparation from high school and inadequate financial resources to get through school. And there's some problems with study skills. Administrators identified that there are study skill problems and coping problems and motivation problems. Now, I want you to think about that. Do you notice that there's this theme that weaves through these reasons? It's pointing the finger at the student and blaming the student. So my question is, how can we fix this problem if we, as educational leaders, are not taking responsibility for the problem, right? So I think that it's something that we need to be very aware of, something that we need to be committed to, and something that needs to be something that we all participate in. That how can we fix this system? How can we motivate each other? Now, the same administrators were asked, how can we fix it? What are the solutions? And what was very heartwarming for me was that one of the solutions identified, the greatest solution or the top solution, was to increase academic advising programs. And I would have to agree with that. Of course, it's my field. So that seems like the answer, right? Of course. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to go about it, but I think that academic advising and working when supporting the inner student is really the way to do it. And my personal hero in this field, his name is Vincent Tinto, and he talks about how we need to just completely change our mindset. And we need to say, how can we create staying conditions at our university so our students are staying, and they're not just getting through school, but they're thriving. Not just surviving, but thriving. And he has been saying this for years, and I just absolutely believe that. And so what I was able to do is take that and then go back into the workforce after my doctoral degree and to be able to implement some changes to make a difference and to support the inner student. So Tinto talks about that really the key of creating the staying power is that you have these two camps that are going on. We have the formal academic camp of scholarship and academic life and courses and majors, and that students have to connect and find their place in that world. But just as important is this other world of social life, of friendship and belonging and connection, and finding like-minded people who support us and fuel us. And that's just as powerful. So these are more powerful, and his model has been researched so many times. There are hundreds of studies, and it shows up the evidence is the same. So it's these connections, these meaningful connections that matter more than anything. So back to academic advising, what we've done in our program, and we are very fortunate to be at an institution with leadership that cares about advising and invests in advising. So over the past 10 years, I've been part of this wonderful opportunity for growing advising at this institution and being able to create it and to change it and to tweak it so that we are meeting the needs of the inner student. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than a lot of other places. And so what we do with our advisors is when we train them, we don't just talk about information, because good advising is not just about information, it's about developing the whole student. And so we've been able to go into the research and say, okay, these are the best qualities in advisors. How can we actually train our advisors on these qualities, and how can we evaluate them? So that's what we do. That's what we're committed to doing. So yes, there's information, but also our advisors are trained on relationship skills and how to connect to students and how to be present and authentic, yet stay professional. And we talk about being goal-oriented so that when a student is sitting across from us and their goals and what they're talking about does not match up to what they're signing up for or what they are talking about, how do we have that conversation? And how do we gently challenge and question and try to direct people to their path? And then we also believe that it's holistic, that college is so much more than just school and friends. College is also about just being healthy and vibrant and connecting. And so we talk about those things too. And then we make it very integrative because there are so many amazing resources on a college campus, but they're no use if a student doesn't connect to those resources in a meaningful way. So how do we recommend that? And that's what we do. And then we build relationships that aren't just a one-time thing, but are relationships that are continuous. And this whole model of developmental advising is something that we take very seriously and something that we are out observing our advisors, and we've created lists and ways to evaluate and to determine where they need to grow. So it's a constant source of feedback. So our advising program we started, and we had 6 advisors. We're now up to 56 advisors and success coaches. Jen is one of our success coaches. And we are now even drilling down deeper and meeting the needs of special populations, which is where we can, that's what I love about this field too. There's always places to grow and places to improve. And so the one area that I want to now just switch my talk to is to really talk about direction and meaning and purpose. Because if there's one population I've learned the most from in higher education, it's working with undecided students. Students who come into the university who are not clear about what they want to do or where they want to go. And I believe that knowing your purpose is one of the most important human questions that we need to ask ourselves. What am I here to do? And that when you connect education to your purpose, that is the strongest driving force that leads to graduation and success. And when we have education that is separate from our purpose, to me, that is the best way to actually sabotage ourselves. So what we need to be doing in education is bringing these two worlds together and helping students find their purpose and helping students find their truth and their authentic voice. And I think in this TEDtopia world, we think, oh, imagine that. Well, actually, I was able to imagine that and actually do that. And I was just stopped right out there by one of my students who said, thank you. I don't know if you remember me. My favorite words, I don't know if you remember me, but. And so he went on to tell me his major and that he's found his passion. And I can spot it from miles away, working with students who have found their passion and their purpose. So what I was able to do, and I think probably the most meaningful work in all of my career when I graduated, was to start a program for undecided students. We took it, we completely scratched everything, and we changed the name to Exploratory. Because exploratory means that I'm on this path to explore. Isn't that what we're all about, exploring? We need to be all about that. Because there's no linear model and no definitive way, this is how I'm going to get there. It's about roads, and it's a dynamic force, and everything is moving. And so either it's moving us or we're moving it. And so we were able to start this program and, again, went to the research. What's the most effective way of working with students? So we turned to another hero in higher education, which is one of the founding mothers of the National Academic Advising Association, Virginia Gordon. And she talks about, if you really want to impact students, you need to just start with the self. So we were bold, took everything off the table. We're not going to talk about job prospects or salaries right now. We're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about what are your values, what matters to you. We ask questions. Would you rather earn more money and have less free time? Or would you rather have more free time and earn less money? That's a question we ask. We talk about interests, not just interests, passions. What do you care most about? When do you lose time when you're working on it? What could you Google for hours because you are so excited about learning about that? And then we talk about strengths. I don't want my students swimming upstream. There's just too much of that. Let's swim with the stream. What are your talents? What are your natural abilities? So those three things, talents, values, interests, those comprise what I call the self-portrait. And from there, the most amazing things start happening. And so what we've learned also is that students can't do this alone. This takes support, and this takes guidance. So we're able to build a whole team of just amazing people to be the support staff for the journey, the guides in the journey. And then say, okay, students, it's time for you to take ownership. Because I have my journey, I'm good. I want you to have your journey, I want you to find your passion, and I want you to take responsibility. Because to me, with passion comes responsibility. And then it's about collecting experiences. So through self, and then looking at all the different possibilities and starting to narrow what's the best possibility, what's the best fit, and then thinking about careers. How can I make a living? Because the two aren't separate, we know that. How can we merge it all? And how can we embark upon this path in college at the beginning of the journey? And so what I have just seen some amazing things happen. Absolutely amazing things have happened. But I want to tell you that it's not easy, and I want to share a little bit of insight that I've gathered from working and hearing the inner student. I want to tell you that there are people out there, a lot of them your own family members, who may not get behind your dream. That's okay. That's okay. And often the way to, if you want to get buy-in, the more responsible you are with your actions, the more you're going to get that buy-in. Okay? But also, you have to come to terms at some point, everyone does, that you're living your life for you. And I can't tell you how many conversations I've had where people are trying to live their lives for someone else. Okay? I also want to tell you that it takes great risk. The Dalai Lama said that great love and great achievement involve great risk. And I believe that it takes great risk. But when you are willing to take that leap of faith and you get to the other side, there's just something really empowering about that. Okay. So I think the question, ask yourself, what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? Right? What would I do next? And when you get overwhelmed by the answer, I just have two solutions, 2 steps. The first, listen to your heart as well as your mind, because the two need to both be in the path and in the direction, and let it be your compass, okay? And the second is that just focus on the next step. Just focus on the next step. That's all we can do is focus on the next step. Thank you.